Hey,
Hi, we're back.
we have a special episode for you today. We are going to give you a June love dating romance forecast.
We're starting this off in the middle of Gemini season, which, if you haven't watched the Gemini episode, please go watch it. It gives so much insights. We're going to dive into more about how this season affects all of us, especially around love and dating. But in between the dates of June, we have Cancer season that starts up. So there's this really fun dualistic nature that's taking place in June. We
Yeah.
can't wait to share it.
Yeah, we're going to go into Gemini season, how that's going to affect certain people, especially in regards to dating, love, sex, all that fun stuff. And then slip into Cancer season and do the same. Um, and it's a pretty dynamic month, so we have a lot to talk about.
Truly.
We're gonna be on our phones quite a bit because
Yeah.
that's where our outline is, and there's so much, like, data.
Dates,
Yeah.
data, the whole nine. We want to make sure that you get your dates with the right data.
Yeah, exactly.
So don't
That's
mind us.
our Virgo placements are very much, like, punctual in that way.
Yeah. The first thing that we're talking about is when Mercury shifts into Gemini on June 6th, which
Yeah.
Mercury rules over Gemini. It loves being in the sign of Gemini.
Yes, it's actually June 3rd. I think
What did I
you
say?
said the 6th, but that's okay.
No, did I?
Yeah. But
Okay.
there's so much happening in such short clusters of time this month, so June 3rd, right at the top of the
Yes.
month, we get
6-3.
yeah, 6/3, I know. We get yeah, Mercury slipping into Gemini, which is exciting
Mhm.
because that's Mercury's home sign. It's one of Mercury's home signs. So it really like empowers that area of your life. If you're like, into Astro Point 2.0, you might know a little bit about the houses in your chart
Mhm.
and you can look at the part of your chart where Gemini is and see what house that corresponds with. That's getting a lot of action this month.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And with Gemini being a mutable sign, I always like to say that the mutable sign people are going to be the most affected when we
Yeah.
have that. So we have Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, and Virgo that are really feeling this impact, but the whole world is going to open up in such a conversational, ideation driven
Hmm.
way. Incredible time for dating apps and,
Yeah.
pick and choose wisely which platforms you're going on,
I
but
mean, obviously, we're gonna recommend Stars Align.
yeah, just I mean, we got the algorithm backing it. Like,
Yeah.
if you really want a celestial aligned energy with your partnership, can't
And
recommend.
in an app that really facilitates conversation
Yeah.
and connection in a way that no other apps do. Like suggestions on dates based on your signs. I personally formulated the algorithm. So a lot of, how I think and move about astrology and compatibility and synastry is in that app. So yeah, we won't gush about it too much,
Yeah.
but it's definitely a time to be out and about and connecting with people. Whether you're partnered or single or interested in dating or not, it's definitely a time for connection.
Absolutely. And even connecting to yourself. Like if you're finding that you're striking out in the dating pool, don't let this time be anything other than a time to more deeply connect with yourself. The things that you're thinking, I think a really great way to go about this too, because Gemini brings so many different thoughts and ideas to the forefront, is just finding time to journal,
Hmm.
to meditate, to go into nature.
Even like blogging, like
Yes.
video journaling yourself,
Mhm.
like talking, just like yeah, getting those thoughts out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, I love Gemini season personally. It hits my fourth house, which is like home and family. I tend to go back home to the East Coast and see family. I will be there at the beginning of Gemini season. And as Mercury moves back into my fourth house, I'll be with my family, and then back in New York hanging out with friends. So I'm really excited for it. And we didn't mention, but um, Jupiter's in Gemini at this point
Yeah.
too. Jupiter moves into Gem or moved, because this will come out after.
Yeah.
Um, moved into Gemini May 25th
Yep.
and will be there until like late May or June of next
Next year,
year.
yeah.
Yeah.
There for essentially a year anytime that it shifts into different signs. So we
Yeah.
get a whole year to bask in this expansive,
Yeah.
dynamic, chaotic.
Yeah, definitely chaotic. I mean, especially with Saturn and Pisces, that's a really it's definitely limiting Jupiter's impact and its ability to be expansive. And it's the fact that Gemini is a difficult sign for Jupiter to be in.
Yeah.
It's a sign of its detriment. It's far away from home, of its sign of Sagittarius, of its home sign of Sagittarius. So there's yeah, there's some limitations that Jupiter faces. However, it's going to show up in really interesting ways for everyone. So we'll talk about that. I think in general, again, look at the Gemini chart in or house in your chart. And when we're talking about love and relationships and romance, I think we're especially thinking about in particular the Gemini
Yep.
risings, the Sagittarius risings,
Mhm.
because all of this Gemini stuff is happening in your seventh house of relationships, partnerships, the other, and then also Aquarius
Yes.
risings.
For the fifth house.
Yes, fifth house, Gemini is your fifth house, which is all about pleasure and sex and romance and fun,
Creativity too, like
creativity,
having creative dates.
fertility. So, those of you who are trying or not trying, be aware
Yeah.
that you Gemini risings are especially fertile right now.
Aquarius rising.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Aquarius risings. I'm like thinking about the Gemini
I
stellium.
know.
Yeah, you Aquarius risings and Gemini risings actually are
Mhm.
especially fertile right now because for Gemini risings, this is your first house of self. This is your body, and having all this energy, all this activity, especially Jupiter there. There's a lot more moisture and action and fertility there than usual. So, yeah, just letting you know.
Love it. I mean, we shift just a day later
Yeah.
then to not just the Venus Cazimi, but we have the Mercury Jupiter conjunction.
Yeah, it's a really special
It
day.
is
So this is the 4th, right? Yeah,
fourth.
June 4th. Um, yeah, standout day. I believe the moon's void. Check out my other podcast if you want some day-to-day
Kira's got
guidance.
all the time, the time info.
I literally just went through every single day of June like the past 2 days.
Mhm.
So I don't remember all the details right now,
I know.
but
That's why I'm like, we have to make sure it is the third that Mercury shifts
yeah.
into. I'm like,
No, I'm pretty sure that's it's the 3rd. I'm, like, pretty positive. But, but no, I think for again, thinking about I'm thinking especially about the Sagittarius risings right
mm,
now, and
oh,
especially the single Sag
yeah,
risings, are the people who are, like, talking to people right now and,
right.
like
You're like on the cusp of kind of figuring out what you are with someone, defining
yeah.
it, not defining it.
Exactly. Like this is a very important time because not only is Mercury in your seventh house really like emphasizing the topic of relationships and
Yeah.
partnerships, you are also in your seventh house, Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, of your rising sign, which I like to think of as like your avatar, your planetary avatar.
Yes. Walking through your birth
Yeah,
chart.
that's like that's you in your chart. They're coming into an alignment, and that's always really special when Mercury and Jupiter come together,
Yes.
and they're coming together in the seventh house of relationships and partnerships. So
Mhm.
that just seems, yeah, extra special.
Totally.
And I would say the same for Gemini risings. There's a lot of like coming together with the other energy with this.
Absolutely. And Mercury, as much as we talk about it being a communication thing, and like I usually go back to dating apps or like
Hmm.
texting your person back and forth, it's also such a great time to define yourself out in the world. And when it's coming together with Jupiter, there's so much more optimism and confidence that comes from this. So if you've been questioning where you fall in the dating scene, like I think something really common with today's day and age is this whole like, who am I
Yeah,
trope that's
yeah.
coming through.
Maybe
And
that's Chiron and Aries.
oh yeah. like having so much of your focus and your core wounding being on yourself and how you show up in the
Yeah.
world, that
Mhm.
it might seem like it's a lot happening at once, but I really want to invite you to dive deeper and have fun with this. Let this be a curious transit
Yes.
where maybe you're rewriting your dating app bio,
Try things out.
exactly, you're going somewhere new that you've never been before. Like, I think that's one of the most special things about taking yourself outside of your comfort zone is like
Mhm.
you see who you really are outside of the implications of who you've always been.
Yeah.
So, such a special day. And it's also the Venus Kazemi the
It's also
same
the
day.
Venus Kazemi. Okay, so a Kazemi is essentially when a planet comes into exact alignment with the
Yeah.
sun. And this happens, yeah, it depends on the planet's cycle. Mercury and Venus, it happens more often.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's special because it marks, I don't even want to go into like the whole star thing, but
Mhm.
it marks a special moment for Venus and its cycle,
Yeah.
where it's shifting phases, it's shifting from a morning star into an evening star.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's just sort of like an exclamation point on like the Venus cycle and Venus in our lives.
Yeah,
Eh,
the exclamation point is such a good way to put it because I always say like the sun's energy when it's in alignment like that amplifies it, but like
mhm.
quite literally with an
Yeah.
exclamation point.
Yeah.
That's so perfect.
And when Venus is, this is like astro nerd stuff. I
Mhm.
just feel like saying it. When Venus is direct, like it is right now, it's not
Mhm.
retrograde and in alignment with the sun. It's on the other side of the sun. So it's sort of in, yeah, it's in this like secret conversation with the sun that we can't see from Earth. When it's retrograde and conjunct the sun, we can see it like pass across the sun. But this is like this secret sort of, I don't know, I always think of it as like she's going out and like pulling
Mm.
information in from the other world,
Yeah.
and it's bringing that back to us in some way. But yeah, it's an exciting time, and I would say especially for like Leo risings, I
Mhm.
love 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 this because this is your ruler, the
Mm.
sun coming into alignment with Venus. It's happening in your 11th house of networks, not sorry, I'm going to say community. Networks, community, friends. Like, I would say if you're being invited around, it doesn't have to be on this date, but around this weekend, this first weekend of June, second weekend of June, say yes to invitations.
Yeah.
Like, go to parties,
Yeah.
meet people. You never know who you might meet who can introduce you to the next person, who can introduce you to something, really important, especially I think with Leo risings, career wise, too.
Yeah.
This is a great networking transit because Venus rules your 10th. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
And anytime that Venus comes into play in a positive way, I always like to say Taurus and Libra people will start to see some benefits in their
Yeah.
relationships. Like, I see this transit being such a powerful point where you can kind of release expectation and go with the flow more easily. I
Hmm.
know that it's hard for people, to define relationships or figure out what's going on. I think clarity and communication are always key for long-standing relationships or healthy relationships, but this is such a good point in time to just go with the flow, maybe not take things so seriously, let it be both Venusian and sun
Hmm.
oriented, like confident, bold, happy, but also like you were saying with that kind of back end around the sun, like go sit in the corner of like a dark dinner club or
Yeah.
like let yourself be private on like a picnic blanket with
Hmm.
a lover. Like not everything needs to be defined in order to be enjoyed. And I think that this transit's such a great day for those in between people.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a great point because I think all of that brings clarity, like being able to just let go. Because that's the thing about a Kazemi, it is this point of like purification and clarification for that planet.
Yeah.
It's going into the heart of the sun and coming
Mhm.
coming back out purified and changed in some way. So this is a shift in the cycle and shift in some of our relationship cycles, and know that you don't have to do anything. Like this is happening. So you can kind of just release and surrender into it. And yeah, see how you come out on the other side. See what clarity comes to you. You don't have to necessarily go seeking it.
Yeah, I love that. And such a good build up too to the Gemini new moon on the
Yeah,
6th.
yes, there's
Like,
so much Gemini stuff happening.
right? And
Yeah.
new moons, when they're in positive aspect, when they're not being bogged down by retrograde seasons or like
Mhm.
anything that's kind of holding them back from being in what they're meant for, setting intentions, playing in the fertile soil and really understanding what it is that you want to plant and tend to and grow. Like all of that energy of figuring out what's going on and gaining clarity is so nice for a new moon because
Yeah.
at that point you can be like, my thoughts are going 100 miles an hour. If I were to think outside of the box, where would I want my life to be? Where would I want my relationships to be?
Yeah. And this new moon in particular is in this like perfect alignment with Venus as well.
Mhm.
So it's very juicy, it's very fertile. There is a little slight limitation, which is Saturn, of course, the king of limitations, sitting in Pisces and barely moving. Saturn's going to station retrograde at the end of June. And so it's just sitting there in Pisces, kind of in this 90-degree angle to the new moon, being like, oh, that's a cute little
Plan.
situation you got over there. Yeah, keep dreaming big. I'm going to remind you what's actually realistic
Mm,
and what you can actually get done, which I think is helpful. When you have so much benefic energy, Venus, Jupiter,
yep.
the sun, the moon, all in one area, it can make it almost a little too hopeful, almost like a
Yes,
little too idealistic.
absolutely.
And so Saturn is kind of there to, be the
Mhm.
brakes and make sure that you're not overdoing the idealism. And with Gemini, it's like things multiply, especially when Mercury's there and Jupiter's there. And there's this again, there's a lot of fertile energy there
Yeah.
right now. So this is where we get twins, right? This is where we get multiples.
I'm like, not me. Keep that for yourself.
But yeah, be careful what you wish for type of thing because you'll see it's going to be hard to control how easily things multiply
Yeah.
with Jupiter's and Gemini for the next year.
And people can get really greedy during this time too.
Yeah.
Like, especially if you find yourself building these really strong connections with certain people. I think that's why I'm airing more on the caution at this kind of first half of June of telling people, let go of the expectation,
Yeah.
let go of trying to define it because whatever or whoever is meant for you is ultimately going to find their way towards you. I mean,
Mhm.
there's definitely free will involved. I'm not like a total fate fanatic. I like both. I like the orchestration of us dancing with the universal pulls that are
Mhm.
happening. So I think it's a really great time, especially for those that are also going through their Saturn return, like I am,
Yeah. Yeah.
to remember that authority and rules and regulation isn't always a bad thing.
Mhm.
Structure, restriction, these are not all inherently bad things. I like to think of it like the bumpers in a bowling alley. Like, if
Yeah.
anything, they can sometimes help you win and strike
Yeah.
out more.
Yeah. This is reminding me of when I was in my Saturn return and in love with a Gemini who I've talked about before. And part of the Saturn it was I was having a Saturn transit trine my Venus. It was Saturn opposing his Venus.
Mhm.
And it made me reflect on Saturn a lot and how the relationship for me was very like healing in the
Mm.
sense that we had so much distance between us and Saturn also kind of represents that distance. Um being far away and like being deprived essentially, that all of that is really Saturnian. And it helped me really like understand why that I needed to take my time with things, right? Like it helped me really appreciate that we weren't rushing into things
Yeah.
and it wasn't just some guy I met and like had sex with immediately and things just like burned out and fizzled right away. I'm still very close friends with this guy. So I came to appreciate the Saturnian, you know, slowing things down, adding the distance between us to make it so it actually did last, even if it wasn't like a lasting romantic relationship. And so I think, yeah, just if you're into like new moon rituals, if you're into setting intention around the new moon, it's a really fertile, beautiful moon, but just know that that Saturnian restriction is there. You're not going to escape that, but also know that it's not like it's not worth doing anything under because it
Yeah.
is really fertile and delicious as well.
Yeah. I think your example is such a good thing to share with people under this new moon too, because it's like maybe the thing that you're asking for or planting the seed of intention around is allowing yourself to appreciate the finite nature of the relationships that you're in right now.
Mhm.
And I've always been told, like, if you can get to the point of letting go of what something is going to be or your expectations around it, it's so much more likely to work in your favor,
Yeah.
anyways. You're
Yeah.
setting it free.
Yeah.
Um, so
Which Gemini need I think all mutable signs need
they do.
that freedom. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's 2 days before Mars transits into
Oh
Taurus
my
on
gosh, yes.
Wednesday.
Yeah, wow. It's so okay, so we start off the first week of June just like Gemini, 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 Gemini. You
Yeah.
can't escape the gem
No.
energy. Bask in it, soak in it. Try not to let it make you crazy.
Appreciate it for what it is.
Yes. I'm like thinking a lot about the Cancer risings who have Gemini in their 12th house and how this might be a lot for them.
Yes.
So just shout out to the Cancer risings,
Mhm.
and all the water risings. Honestly,
Have it in kind of difficult
difficult, yeah,
houses.
especially Cancer and Scorpio.
Mhm.
If you're not feeling like you're wanting to be super social and out there, it's okay. Like
Yeah.
this isn't going to affect everyone the same way. Your time is coming later in the month, so just wait till Cancer season
I'm
pops
like,
up.
quite literally.
Yeah, literally. But yeah, for now we have so all of that Gemini energy, which will
Mhm.
continue, but we have a nice little shift where Mars enters
Yeah.
Taurus.
Oh my goodness. And Mars being this planet of aggression and passion and sex, being in sensual Taurus, even though that's not its home sign, I still think there's such like a juicy energy with this. Like
Mhm.
when Mars shifts into Taurus, I just see like doing very almost like spa dates
Mhm.
or staying at home, having like a home movie
Going to like the
night.
botanical gardens, lots
Yes.
of picnics, being outdoors,
Yeah, hiking.
hiking, yeah. Oh, cooking for each other.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Doing like a cooking class.
Cooking class, pottery class. All of that type of stuff. It's very yeah, my Pisces ex has Mars and Taurus in the first, and I mean, as a Scorpio, Mars and Scorpio, it's a difficult one for
Yeah.
me, but I think they're sent to help me slow down and help me appreciate the fact that not everything has to be a rush. I don't have to,
Mhm.
yeah, there's like a patience involved with Mars and Taurus. So the Martians out there, like me, the Aries, Scorpio placements, especially risings, might not love it so much because it is a period where your ruler is slowing down
Mhm.
and you might be used to not having to slow down. But especially for the Scorpio risings, this is your ruler in your seventh house. Similarly, what we were talking about with the Sag
Yeah.
risings, your chart ruler Mars moving into the seventh house of relationships and partnerships could really bring your focus to that area of your life. And same with the Taurus risings, who
Yeah.
have that's your seventh house ruler coming into your first house. So relationships, people coming to you. Yeah, the Scorpio Taurus risings, especially in placements in general, are definitely going to feel this shift and that shift towards like more relationship focus.
Yeah, it's such a good time to remind yourself that being the one taking action or initiating constantly might signify to you that it's time to take a step back. Like letting
Mm,
yourself be in the mode of receiving, especially if you are someone who is a natural giver or has a
mhm,
tendency to overgive. um, Definitely when it comes to romantic relationships, this is really almost like a permission slip from the universe for you to really sit back and see who's showing up for you too. Like I had one of my
mhm.
close guy friends, he's actually an Aquarius, post about this. Somebody had asked on threads, like, How would you feel if you were dating someone who never DMs or texts you first, but immediately responds when you reach out to
I'm
them?
that person.
And his response, I feel like, is such a good indication of this Mars in Taurus transit, like picking up on it early. And he was just like, no, I don't think that that's gender specific. I don't think that there's
Mhm.
roles. Like, if it's only one person initiating, I'm going to take a step back.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is a message that I want to share with everybody under this transit, because if relationships are solely hinged on you being the one reaching out, setting up dates, doing all of the heavy
Or
emotional
being on the
lifting,
other end, or being
right?
only the receiving.
Yes, to wake up to these dynamics. I feel like Taurus, Mars and Taurus specifically, but Taurus energy in general, when it's on a personal planet, really reminds us of looking outside of the box and being like, which role am I playing right now? And can
Mhm.
I find more of an equilibrium in the way
Yeah.
that we're giving and receiving with each other?
I love that. I love that. um, One other sort of rising sign I'll point out for this, Capricorn risings.
Oh, yeah.
So Mars is an important planet for Capricorn risings. It's your exaltation lord. I'm not going to get into it, but it's important for you. And so it moving into Taurus, which is your fifth house of
Mhm.
love, pleasure, sex, romance, fertility. Again, I like to point that out for people. Some people want it, some people don't.
Yeah.
So just letting you know when you might be a little bit more fertile.
Hmm.
Um, this is one of those times, yeah, and with fertility, the other side of that is creativity. So, I like to say the 5th house is what we give birth to. Sometimes that's babies, sometimes that's, our
Project.
creative
Yeah.
project. But regardless, I love this for Capricorn risings too. I think it's gonna be sexy, and for anyone with Venus and Taurus,
Mm.
that's gonna be hot.
Yeah. Back on the Capricorn risings in the fifth house, this is also a great time for self pleasure too. Like, if
Mhm.
you're taking time to be celibate, whether or not that's your choice, if you're just in a kind of like a dry spell, don't forget that you also have access to connecting with your
Absolutely.
sexuality when you're the only one there.
Absolutely. My fifth house year when I was 28, everyone, when you turn 28, your fifth house becomes activated.
Hmm.
And I was so excited. I was like single and like, yes, I'm gonna like be my fifth house glory. And then the pandemic happened. And I was like, and I thought back to it and I was like, oh, I was still in my fifth house Steez. He's very much still my fifth house Steez. If you know what I mean.
Yes.
Locked inside. But yeah, it's very much about self-expression in general, and that's part of sexuality. And so all of that goes into that beautiful fifth house bundle of love.
I love it. I can't wait. As a Taurus rising, I cannot wait for this transit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, it doesn't I don't hate it. I'm not gonna lie. I don't hate it. I do hate it sometimes, mostly because I'm a Martian. It's more of like the
Mhm.
motivational energy to like do things. But when it comes to like love and sex, I don't hate it.
Yeah,
I
laid
think all of
back
the earth and water risings and earth and water people can kind of appreciate this energy.
for sure.
Yeah. What else do we have?
I know. I was just gonna say, I'm like, which one do you want to talk about next?
Well, okay, so we have other things to talk about. I wanted to talk about the Neptune of it all, which is something that is often forgotten about because that's the nature of Neptune. It just sly. But yeah, we have Neptune in Pisces. We talked about Saturn in Pisces and how all these Gemini planets will be running into a square with Saturn and running into that like limitation, that
Yeah.
cock block, that roadblock. Saturn is the
The
cosmic cock
chal-
block.
challenging cock block
Yeah.
of it all.
But Neptune's there too.
Yeah.
And that's another type of challenge that is not so much about boundaries, it's actually about complete lack of boundaries.
The illusions that come up in the dating scene.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the first thing that shows up so thematically for me when I think about this is the whole hot water that Bumble just got themselves into with
So
their campaign.
I don't know about this. Please tell me.
They had these very tone deaf billboards
Okay.
all over LA. I'm pretty sure it was just LA. Could have been outside. I feel like when you're in an LA bubble, you're like, they were
Yeah.
all
It's
over.
yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like just in our city. But they essentially said, a vow of celibacy is not the answer.
Yes.
And all I kept thinking about was this square to Neptune that's coming up. Like all of these planets getting really close to the epitome of the challenging aspect that they're going to be making. But essentially, what it was doing was putting everybody in this illusionary state of like, am I the one that's making a mistake by taking this vow?
Yeah.
And all I kept thinking was like asexual people,
Yeah.
people who, this is definitely not trauma informed, and then also people who are making that decision just to simply take a step back. Like I went
Mhm.
through a year of devotional self-inflicted celibacy,
Yeah.
and it was such a good time for me to reevaluate my values when it came to dating, and especially with people that I'm just meeting.
Mhm.
So there is no shame in the game. Like one
Yeah.
night stands are not an issue. Having, a fuck buddy, a situation, like none of this is the issue. But I think big companies with a responsibility to take
Yes.
care of the people that they have on their dating platform, it just screamed this Neptune square.
Yeah, wow. Yes, I remember seeing something about that, and I didn't look too much into it, but that's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the way that people are kind of taking the narrative back. Like it's been a big thing for people to take the billboards and put their own messages over it.
Okay.
Like lying to people to get them into bed with you isn't the answer,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's like
Much better message.
exactly. Like kind of giving people that step back to actually hear their own inner voice.
Mhm.
And I think that's what this square with Neptune to all of these Gemini planets is really going to do for everyone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially talking about inner voice with like the Gemini placements. Yeah. So Neptune's been in Pisces since 2011. Um, it's going to finally leave for a hot second next year and then come back and then go back into Aries. But yeah, we're nearing the end of a
Mhm.
like essentially almost 15-year transit. And, but with that, I'm not going to even go into like all of Neptune and Pisces, obviously, but with that, yeah, when planets move through Gemini, they run through the square with Pisces or Neptune and Pisces. And Neptune is a planet of illusion,
Yeah.
delusion, fantasy,
Escapism.
escapism, things that are almost like smoke and mirrors almost, it's fantasy. It's not fully real.
Yeah.
And there's elements of Neptune where, sometimes we need to lean into fantasy in order to draw elements of that otherworldly space into our reality and to
Yes.
make our lives more magical and to expand our minds and our hearts and all of that beautiful rainbow and unicorn stuff. It's very
I'm
Neptunian.
like, just to keep us from being too pessimistic,
Yeah,
like
exactly. We need escape. That is not something that's you can't argue against that, I don't think.
the role playing during this time.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure there's gonna be some fun like festivals and anyway, but yeah, so the difficulty here is that Gemini is a sign ruled by Mercury. It has a lot to do with data and facts and information and data points. And Neptune in Pisces is like, oh, all those data and facts and data points. Here's a tsunami.
Mhm.
I'm gonna wash all that away because Neptune is very much like we're all connected. There's no boundaries and so separation.
Yes.
Like separation is an illusion. And so it's a difficult yeah, it's a difficult square. It's a difficult thing to I don't know.
Conceptualize.
Yeah. And so I think the thing that we're trying to get to with this is we want you to be careful in
Yeah.
terms of what you are hearing, seeing,
What you
and
agree to.
believing,
Yeah.
agreeing to, especially when it comes to substances too.
Oh God, I
Neptune and
know.
Pisces has a lot to do with substances. Saturn being there has done a lot to like sober people up and
Yeah.
make people like reject a lot of that. But
I know there's like a whole like no alcohol wave going on right now,
yeah,
and I like catch it and then I fall off and then I catch it
it's
again.
very Saturn and Pisces. I mean, you have your Saturn return to move through that.
True.
But yeah, it's I would say just beware, be cautious, know that For me, it's like I know when I'm being Neptuned, and not
Yeah.
even by someone else. It's just I know when Neptune influences
Mhm.
around because it's like rose-colored glasses.
Yes.
When you're like with someone, you cannot see the flaws and everything seems so perfect and beautiful. Sorry to tell you, you might be being Neptuned.
Honestly, this is like the type of relationship dynamic or even like suitor dater situation that your friends, the minute that you get up from the table, are just like, what are they thinking?
Yeah,
You know,
like,
like
oh god.
it's the person that has a mattress on the floor, but then they're telling you that they want to be a provider. And
Like
it's
they're
just
hot
like,
and their you know what is big, and so it's yeah,
I mean,
it's
Jupiter is playing a part in all of this.
exactly. Yeah, it's just I think, yeah, we just wanted to get that caution, especially if you're on apps.
Mhm.
Just don't be too quick to believe, to trust. Don't be too quick to believe anything everyone says. Just like keep that in the back of your mind.
Or like if exes are coming back around, I
Yeah.
feel like that's only ever attributed to Mercury retrograde. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, we have to warn the people for this
Oh,
Neptune
yeah.
square that's happening because, yeah, just don't believe only the best parts. Really try to stay rooted in reality during this time.
Exactly. And also at the same time, if you're going to let yourself go there, just know that you're going to have to come back to earth at some
Yeah.
point, and it's kind of hard. It's kind of a rough landing.
I know it reminds me of the book My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and it's like
I never read
it's
that.
it's so good. I'll lend it to you. It's really an incredible read. But just this idea of like, yeah, you could numb yourself out,
Mhm.
but life is still moving
Yeah,
even
you're gonna have to
outside
come
of the
back
numbing.
eventually.
So
Yeah.
just the love bubble is fun while it lasts.
I'm gonna just so you know, those, like, squares to Neptune happen Venus is gonna square Neptune on the 16th,
Mhm.
Mercury on the 17th, and then the Sun on the 20th. So just so you know that, like, middle of the month, couple of days, it gets a little bit nebulous. It gets a little bit, things might feel a little confusing, especially communications might feel a little confusing. Plans might just kind of disintegrate. So just keep an eye out. But
Yeah.
overall, it's a fun, mutable time. We're definitely encouraging fun and exploration.
Yeah, just with both feet on the ground for this one. And
Exactly.
in the midst of all of that, we have Venus, the planet of love and beauty and sex and money, shifting into Cancer on the
Yes.
17th.
Yes. I'm so excited.
I know.
Venus loves being in water signs. It's like
Mhm.
a great place for Venus to be. Um, and yeah, I think it's going to really help cool things down and more importantly, like bring us back into a space of like emotion, emoting, feeling,
Yes.
expressing, not so mental, yeah, not so mental, intellectual energy
Yeah,
that we're gonna be kind of bombarded with all the Gemini. I
I know.
think it's gonna be really nice for things to, like, cool down into Cancer.
Yeah, we go from overthinking into maybe a little bit of excessive feeling,
Yeah,
but Venus loves feeling.
yeah,
Venus loves the intangible, the illogical, and not that Cancer brings all of that energy out, but it definitely encourages us to come back down into our hearts,
mhm.
to really see people as humans rather than points of validation or objects. And I think that can only do good for everyone, regardless of where you're at in your
Yeah.
dating journey. Like, it brings the human element back into it.
And I think it really allows us to like lean into care and caretaking
Mhm.
and like really what you need to feel nurtured and taken care of and how you best nurture and take care of others. I think it just allows us to seep into that, like you said, like human heart space of like just intuitive, instinctual caretaking.
Yeah, and as much as people get on Capricorns about being like non-feeling robot cold types, Cancer rules your 7th house if you're a Capricorn rising, and this
Mhm.
is a really powerful transit as far as getting clear on your dating values, going on really fun dates, maybe
Mhm.
even taking the next step with someone that you feel seriously
Yes.
about. Like,
Yes. Yeah, I'm gonna shout out both Cancer risings and Capricorn
yeah.
risings for this transit. I'm also gonna shout out Pisces risings, my fellow fish. Cancer is our fifth house of, like we've been saying,
Yes.
pleasure, sex, fun, creativity, all that jazz.
Mhm.
I love me some Cancer transits.
Yes.
I definitely get the best loving, I feel like, during Cancer season.
I can't wait for all of the tea after that.
I mean, speaking of being dry, yeah, I've just not been dating for a while. It's
Mhm.
ever since I had some things end in like February, and it's just been like nothing since then, which I'm not complaining about at all. I know, my time will come. I feel like I should do an episode, like a bonus episode on timing or like your slut eras.
Oh,
'Cause I
absolutely.
do that with my zodiacal releasing, and it
Yeah.
just, like, got it spot on. But anyway, Pisces risings, absolutely, like, this is if especially if you're just, like, feeling slutty, like,
Mhm.
you will get some, babe, like,
Oh,
go out and get some.
absolutely not the time for you to stay in the
Yeah.
house. Like, even if it's just for fun and flirting and nothing goes into the physical realm, like, sometimes the sexiest thing is just, like, eye fucking somebody across
Yeah.
the
Or
bar,
making
like,
out with someone at the end of
ugh.
the night, like, that can
Slipping
be
somebody your number, like,
yes,
I
have
don't know.
fun.
This is such a pleasure-filled experience for you
Exactly.
guys.
Also, Virgo risings, because
Not
this
me,
is gonna
but
be in the yeah. I'm just like,
no, I know, I looked
Virgo
at the
you.
camera like
Virgo risings, this is gonna be your 11th house of
Yep.
community, networks, friends. So again, say yes to invitations. You never know who you might meet when you're out and about, or whose friend might be bringing a friend who might be,
Well, and
just right for you.
speaking of a friend, this is also when Mercury goes into Cancer. So
Exactly.
Mercury and Venus are sitting here just having like, I don't know, it gives me like in the girls' room
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
vibe. Like
yeah.
it's like we're all just here like in this Venusian space, but like we're sharing all of
Yeah.
the
Oh, you like
insights.
that guy? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay. My friend knows him. I'll get his number, that
Yep.
sort of thing. And so,
So
yeah,
good.
Mercury's going to enter Cancer right after Venus does, same day. They form this really beautiful alignment at the
Mhm.
very beginning of Cancer. And again, especially for both Pisces and Virgo risings, I fucking love this. I
Yes.
love this. I would say, who else? Of course, the Cancer risings and
Hmm.
Capricorn risings, and then Scorpio risings
Ooh,
too.
yeah.
I think if you're a Scorpio rising and you're traveling in June, because okay, Venus rules Scorpio rising seventh house of relationships and partnerships. It's going to be in their ninth house of travel. So I'm like, if you're traveling, if you're taking classes and you're single, mingle, okay?
Yes.
Mingle, because this is a like Venus in Cancer for Scorpio risings is such a good transit for love abroad
Hmm.
or love while traveling or love while studying.
Yeah.
So,
Meeting people even on social media too. Like I feel
yeah.
like when somebody's at a distance, but you have that shared experience or
Mhm.
platform.
Yeah, or someone from a different culture, it could
Yeah.
be different country that comes into your sphere. Um, yeah, just again, keep your eyes and ears out and look cute.
Let yourself explore.
Yes.
Oh, I love it.
What else? Okay, so right after that, we have our summer
Can
solstice.
Yeah, Cancer
Cancer
season
season
starts on the
starts.
20th.
Yeah,
It's I mean, it's gonna be a hot girl
it
summer.
is.
Like to everybody, the girls, the gays, the theys, like it is going to be such a hot summer. Um, Cancer season, we've already talked so much about this being like wet and
Yeah.
wild. Like they have such a good way of like bringing you home and cooking you the best meal that you've ever had, but it's going to be a marry me chicken. You're going to
Mhm.
fall into this like hexed style love
Yeah.
with people. It's just it's magical. We don't give enough credit to our emotional bodies creating magic. And I just feel like whenever we get into Cancer season, it's like life begins to wake back up.
Yeah,
I
we start
mean,
wearing less clothes, showing more skin, and we're just like more ready and willing to like get close
yeah.
and connect and touch and eat together and all the things.
I just picture like feeding somebody a piece of watermelon and it's like dripping
Yes.
down their chin. Like, okay.
It's like literally hot in here, so
Right?
let's keep going. Um, So yeah, we have Cancer season. A lot, everything that we kind of just said about Venus and Cancer and
Right.
Mercury Cancer, same rising signs situations applies. Like
Cancer,
especially,
Capricorn,
yeah,
Pisces,
the
Virgo.
basically all the like the water and earth sign risings should be enjoying this. Day after the solstice, we get full moon, Capricorn full moon. So again, highlighting the Capricorn and Cancer risings. The Capricorn full moon, I think, is really it's especially good for those two rising signs, but for everyone to kind of take like a kind of a what's the word inventory on like the structures of their relationships. It's like structures in your life. I
Mhm.
think that yeah, depending on where it hits in your chart will kind of bring that spotlight to that area of life. But in general, I think relationship wise, it's very much like, okay, what are we doing?
Yeah, and there's a reason that most romantic comedies, when there's like a nighttime scene, there's always a full moon in the
Mm-hmm.
sky. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not a crescent moon, it's not a new moon, it's like big glaring
Spotlight.
full moon. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's because these times really do illuminate everything that's going on. Like our shadowy aspects come up to light. This is definitely going to help us too with that like Neptune energy to really feel things out and get more clarity than we
Yeah.
even had.
Yeah.
Um, and I like to think back to on some of the dates that I've had on Capricorn full moons. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just so easy to talk about the future under
Mm-hmm.
these full moons and like really bring things to fruition and remember that Capricorn is not cold and unfeeling.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, I feel like this full moon is going to give us such an opportunity to be like, maybe the tangible stuff makes me feel safe
Yeah,
and maybe
exactly.
defining our relationship makes me feel safe or having a new dynamic in our relationship makes us feel safe whether you're partnered or you're single. Like there's always the opportunity to look at things and, like you were saying, take inventory.
Mhm.
So you can really say, I know we said yes to this dynamic back then, but are we still saying yes to that dynamic now? And if not, it gives such a powerful time to collaborate. Like, I
Mhm.
think about double dates during this time or
Mhm.
like playing board games together, having long winded debates.
Yeah,
Like,
or even just, like, being in nature. I feel like this is the season for road trips, like, weekend
yeah,
trips, just getting away with your love or a new love even, and really, like, being present, being in the flesh with each other, like, really coexisting.
yeah,
And like you said, it's, like, a time to really think about the future, the long term, or it's a soft seriousness. It's like it's the seriousness of Capricorn with the softness of the moon.
yeah.
And so yeah, it can really lend itself to some like important conversations, but with like ease.
The imagery that comes to mind is like a hard candy with a soft center, like
Mm-hmm.
something that has like a juice on the inside, but
Yeah.
it's like hard on the outside. Like even if it takes licks to get to the center of the Tootsie Pop,
Yeah.
like be willing to just go there
Yeah.
during this time.
I love it. And yeah, be clear about I say with full moons, I typically tell people like just see what comes up because it is like the moon's projecting full light of the sun. It's very much a spotlight. So it's like see what's being spotlighted and
Mhm.
then you can respond to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, see what happens.
I know I used to work in an emergency
Oh
room
my
back
gosh.
in New Hampshire. um, in the back office. Like I
Okay.
was EA supporting 5 women who ran the emergency department.
Mm-hmm.
And this was when I really started getting into astrology and like studying the patterns and how they were showing up in society. And we would go through these breakdowns of when we were the most full over the last month,
Oh
like
yeah.
when the beds were all taken up, when we had to, airlift people to Boston, and it was always without fail under a full moon. And I would just sit back and be like, told you so.
Yeah. I could have told you that. Yeah,
There's an aggression that
it's the
comes with
peak
it.
of activity. It's like the
Mhm.
swelling of activity in the month. And so, yeah, I always say full moons are great times for like gatherings, dinner parties, like to be out and about. if you're feeling it, because it's usually like you have the energy. It's like
Yeah.
the light of the sun is still being, broadcasted to us at nighttime. So yeah, you definitely feel that response to it.
Yeah, this is like the time where you can set up like happy hour drinks with one person and then like a full 5-course dinner that same night.
Yeah.
Like,
It's very, yeah, you can get a lot in
yeah,
with the full moon. So go out and have fun.
truly.
We have one final thing to talk about for
Oh,
June,
man.
which is Saturn station retrograde on the 29th.
I'm
So
like
that's
wiping
coming.
my tears away.
Yeah, I think that's is a station on your natal Saturn.
Hmm.
Yeah, I had that too.
Yeah.
For all you Saturn and Pisces out there, young and old, sending you so much love throughout your Saturn return. Megan's going through it too.
I would send you my love, but I don't have any love. No, I'm just kidding. It's been a challenging time, but I feel like every time that we go through something, there's such a clear benefit
Yeah.
to the harsh experience that has happened. And I really do believe that that's where Pisces escapism comes into play and is so helpful for us as we go through this really monumental transition from childhood into adulthood or
Yeah.
like mid adulthood into your elderly years. It's like there's such a graceful shift that I feel like you can give yourself and realize like even though this hits hard, I still made it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's very much how I feel. I feel like I'm still recovering from mine, but I feel very much like I moved to a different stage,
Yeah.
like there was definitely me before and me after. So we're sending you love. And
Mhm.
I think especially the Cancer and Leo risings with Saturn ruling your seventh house of partnership and relationship. This could be your Saturn return, like could very much be about this topic.
Mhm.
So sending you a lot of love. And similarly with the Libra and Virgo risings,
Mhm.
Saturn ruling your fifth house of sex and pleasure, that your Saturn return could very much be about like yeah, celibacy or really exploring your sexuality for the
Yeah.
first time or anything in between. So just knowing that this Saturn station retrograde period is a time to pause, to reflect, to take stock, take inventory, kind of like we were saying, but knowing that it's like a 5 month period, 4 month, 4.5 months, I think,
Yeah.
where you can kind of like pull back a little bit
Mhm.
and review.
Yeah. Well, and it's marking the rest of the summer too. Like I think there's no coincidence in the fact that we're ending June with this transit
Mhm.
because all it's doing is gearing us up to be like take your time.
Yeah, slow
Be
down.
present with your summer. Like
Yeah,
let yourself be fully in the moments that you're having without wishing that you were anywhere else.
yeah,
Like I know that's so hard for us in this extremely overstimulated, distracted period of time. Like even us sitting on our phones,
yeah,
like
yeah,
there's something to be said about taking your attention back and realizing how valuable of an asset that truly is to your life here and your human experience. And let this transit be the marker of 4 or 5 months where you're really reclaiming your power when you bring your
mhm.
attention to the moments that you're in.
I almost, like, don't wanna say anything else because that was so nice
Mhm.
and succinct. Um, but yeah, June is it's an interesting month, and I'll just say, like, shit gets weird in July and August, so soak up soak up June,
Yeah.
soak up all this Gemini energy and then the subsequent Cancer energy.
Mhm.
I think for the first half of the month, like, the air and fire risings are really gonna, like, really love that Gemini energy.
Yeah.
And then similarly with the second half of the month, the earth and water, us earth and water girlies get our time. But regardless, like, yeah, soak it up. June is always a fun month. I think Gemini and Cancer season can just be like pretty joyous. And again, shit gets weird in the rest of the summer. So soak up this energy.
And be sure to join us again next Tuesday. We're actually going to have a really fun guest on
Yes.
for our cancer themes that's coming up this month, too. So there's going to be so much to enjoy with us. Please don't feel like you're alone. If anything, we'll let you know when stars align.
Yes. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to When Stars Align. You can catch us every Tuesday for new weekly episodes.
Be sure to subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave us a review to help more people find us.
If you have questions about your love life that you're interested in us answering on a future episode, be sure to submit them in the link in the show notes.
This podcast was created for Stars Align dating app. Produced by Megan and Kirah and edited by Chad the Maverick.